Welcome to Pattern and Craft. I'm Courtney, and in today's episode, I wanted to do another creative show and share. I really had a lot of fun with the last episode, getting to kind of just be a little more relaxed and show you all of my whips and new acquisitions and finished objects. And I thought it would be fun to do it again. It's been a few weeks, so I have quite a few new things to show and share. And some of those are finished objects, some of those are works in progress, new works in progress, and some are new acquisitions. I am mostly still doing crochet, but actually that's not true. I've mostly been doing knitting now. The last episode, you will have noticed I started a scarf, and that was the first thing that I've ever really knit besides samples, little swatches. And now I think I have 2 scarves and a cowl going. So I'm kind of amping up the knitting quite a bit. Almost too much, in fact. I actually have a little bit of neck pain going on, I think from, developing new muscles to hold the work, maybe looking down too much, that kind of thing. Maybe just doing too much knitting because I'm having a lot of fun with it. So I'm not really restraining myself as far as time, so I probably need to work on that a little bit and kind of rein it in, but I am having a lot of fun, so that's important too. So let's start with our finished objects. Well, this one isn't finished yet. I think I showed this last time as the baby blanket. It is still a whip, but I have part of it done. I have like the whole main blanket, and then I've also got most of the border done. I think I'm going to do like one more row of double crochet, maybe a row of single crochet after that, and then this little guy is done, but it's so close to finished object that I'm considering it a finished object. I'll put in some B-roll here when I have it complete, which should be within maybe today. All right, so now I have the other finished object that you saw last week. Don't worry, I have some new ones too. So I did finish the top of that little bag. Remember where I was making this bag and I wanted to adjust the top? Well, I finished that. So this is a completely finished object this week. So cute little bag, all done. And I'm very happy with it. It's kind of like girly and geometric at the same time. Very millennial. All right. So next I have just, it's kind of silly, but it's just a little coaster. And this was actually a practice swatch that I was doing. So here's the back. Is a practice swatch I was doing for some knitting, and it is a technique where you're doing what's called mosaic crochet, or sorry, not mosaic crochet, that's a whole different thing. I do know how to do that as well, but this is mosaic knitting. So with mosaic knitting, you slip stitches as the way that you work the color work so that you don't have to change colors and hold 2 strands. You just work one row and then another row back in one color, slipping the stitches that you want the next color to be, and then you work the next row in the other color. So you're only ever working with one strand of yarn at a time. So it's a really easy way to do color work. So I thought that would be good since I really just I started to learn knitting. I'm like a beginner knitter, but I thought, I think I saw a video on this, and also I think Young Folk Knits is doing is it a Cowl or some sort of little group activity of mosaic knitting. So I was inspired to just go ahead and see what is mosaic knitting, and that's what I came up with. I kind of made my own pattern. And here's my first swatch. So definitely, if you're trying out a new technique, do it a few times. Don't just do it once and go, oh, this is hard and what am I doing? And like get frustrated. That's what kind of happened with this swatch. My tension's all over the place. I kind of had some struggles. It's not too bad, and it does show that you can do it in garter stitch or in stockinette stitch. So that was my first attempt, and I was kind of getting confused and having issues. And then this is my second attempt, which is much better. And then I threw a little crochet edge on it so I could have a little coaster. Nothing crazy, just a like cute little thing I did with a sample. Now I have a little bit more of a larger finished object. I think this actually might not be, this might be half a finished object because, which makes it a whip, but I think I wanted to make a little hot pot holder, and I don't think it's thick enough. If you have crochet and you have holes like this, I don't think that that's good for, heat. So I think I need to make a second one and then sandwich them together. So this was actually using the same pattern as my baby blanket that I was, with my own pattern as well. But I wanted to show, kind of demo that. I was filming a video on how to make the baby blanket, little tutorial. And I also wanted to have a section where I showed that you could continue to change color with that same technique. This is a really easy color changing crochet technique, similar to the Mosaic knitting and different from Mosaic crochet. It's actually just, but it's more similar than to the knitting technique, where you're skipping a stitch as you're going through, and then you come back with the second color and work into those skipped stitches. So it's essentially the same thing, but on my baby blanket, it's just switching between two colors. Here I showed that you can switch between as many colors as you want, and you just do this, the color you're using, the switch, the next color you're using, the switch, the next color you're using, the switch. And I realized you didn't need to have actually necessarily a solid layer in between these switching rows. You don't need to have this solid row necessarily if you don't want it. I think it kind of gives your eye a place to rest, and it kind of helps with your tension. But if you wanted to, you can just go straight from switching to pink to switching to white, from switching to orange, So you don't have to have these solid rows. If you don't want to, you could. So I showed that just right at the very edge, and then I was kind of like, this is big enough to be a pot holder, and I don't need to keep going, so I might as well stop, and that's what that is. And then I was gonna actually make a back for it that was just solid of the linen color. This is Katona, by the way. This is one of the yarns that I really like to use if I'm just using a plain 100% cotton yarn. I actually intended for this to end up being a pot holder or a trivet or something. So if you use anything with a synthetic in it, like an acrylic, you don't want to use that for anything with heat because it could melt. So I specifically chose 100% cotton yarn, and I really like this one. It's Katona. I think it's a sheep cheese yarn. I don't know how to say that exactly. I think that's correct though. And I don't know, just really like working with it. It has some really cute colors. Anyway, I was creating a solid back for this to make it a pot holder, and then I kind of got distracted while I was working and decided to try. I guess I did it here in the baby blanket, so you know that you can do this. But I wanted to just do one little row of an accent color without it being a whole stripe. Just kind of have little, I don't know, hash marks or little dots or whatever. And I thought that was really cute. But now I like the aesthetic of this much better than the other one. So I decided that I'm going to make a back for this that's either completely solid or that has the same edge technique or edge detail, or maybe have a few rows of this little hash mark. If you go solid, solid, hash mark, solid, solid, hash mark, it works out pattern wise. So I was thinking that could be cute for the other side. I don't know. I just like it. It's really cute. So I'm gonna have 2 pot holders. Like essentially you could call these done, but I think they need to be double thickness to really be usable. So those are gonna get done soon. Then I also was playing around with other color changing techniques and with knitting. So I kind of just did a couple little swatches. This one's really tiny, but it's just a really quick kind of experiment using rows of garter stitch with star stitch in between. I don't think it's super successful because the star stitch gets kind of hidden in there, but it is kind of a cute texture and a little pattern. And then I have this other one where I was trying to see what else I could do, just maybe some regular old stockinette in between. So I have, this is 2 rows of 3 stockinette. This is back to the star stitch. And then this is sort of trying to do a diamond shape with sort of slipping the stitches similar to mosaic crochet. But it ended up a heart shape, which is funny. So I'm not really sure what I did wrong, but that's actually kind of cute. It looks like either hearts or little fox faces. So if anybody's interested in the pattern for that, let me know and I can let you know how I created it. But it's basically like a row of garter stitch, then working this little, like, I think it was 1 stitch, 3 stitch, 3 stitch, 1 stitch, skipping all the gray, just working with the white, then working a row of the gray garter, but still skipping that little join stitch. So that when I came in with the white again, I picked that up so that it creates this little kind of diamondy latticey thing going on. So I don't know, I was just experimenting. And then I also started some whips, so I should probably go through those. I'm gonna show the crochet whips and then the knit whips. How about that? So for crochet, the first one I wanna show is this Carter bag that's in the process, but it isn't really actually a Carter bag. So Tony of TL Yarn Crafts just came out with a pattern called the Carter bag, and it's a 2-color bag made from 3 granny squares, essentially, plus a little triangular granny square and a strap. And I wanted to make something pretty similar, and my intention was originally to make that bag. And then I was looking through my yarn stash, and I had a very similar yarn to what she was using for that pattern. I actually have both the yarn that she was using as well as other yarns that are very similar. So this is actually Cozy from Hobby, and it's a very similar yarn to what her Carter bag calls for, which is Lion Brand's the cottony one. And they're both cotton acrylic, I think 50-50-ish cotton acrylic, and they're very high twist yarn, almost felted. So they're kind of spongy, really good for home goods. Actually I have a pillow. So this pillow cover that I designed, and I actually have a pattern for this on my Ravelry if anybody's interested. And I also have a video on my YouTube, like a tutorial for how to do the stitch and how to do the join, and how to do the curved corners. Anyway, this is the Lion Brand, the cottony one yarn. So I had some of this in my stash, but I didn't have enough of any one color to make the 2-color bag. I would have needed, I think, 2 balls of each color, and I only had like 1 ball or a partial ball of any color in particular of that. So this yarn is very, very similar. I don't know if you can tell. So this is the Hobby yarn next to the Lion Brand yarn. It's extremely similar, and it's, you know, just a little bit lighter. If you look at the yards per gram, it's just slightly thinner. But I thought I would like have a little bit more of that yarn, so this could be a stash busting project, right? So I went through and I decided to make it 3 colors because I didn't quite have enough of 2 colors. But I had just enough to do 3 colors. And then I calculated wrong. And then I also switched the stitch. I changed it to a different stitch completely. So she has something similar to this where she's working, it's not even that similar either. She's working 2 stitches as a V stitch, but with no chain 1 in between the V, just like 2 stitches next to each other, but then working into them as if they were a V stitch on each row. And I don't know, I get why she was doing that. It was made a really dense fabric so that your bag wouldn't have holes in it, but I kind of wanted my bag to have holes in it, so I did a completely different stitch with V stitches and switched to single crochet every other row so that I could see the pattern of the V stitches in my stitch there. But then for the edges, I wanted my edges to be a little more sturdy. So I did switch to a 2 stitches next to each other kind of version of that stitch. And then I think I do sort of like a moss stitch in between those, like single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, and then go back into the double crochets well, they're not 2 together, but 2 next to each other for this section and this section. But I did miscalculate actually my yarn, and so it ended up being a stash busting project that I had to go ahead and buy extra yarn for, so that didn't work out very well, did it? I did use up all of this cream color and all of this gold, but then I had to buy 1 or 2 more balls of the gold. And this blue I had to buy completely new. I was going to use black, but they were all sold out, so I couldn't use up my ball of black plus more from the website. They were sold out, so I went with the blue. But I actually really like this color combo, the sort of light navy with the toffee color with the cream. And so the way this is constructed, I'm not quite done with all the pieces yet, but you would do sort of this would be your side, this would be your bottom, this would be your other side, and then you do a little triangle in the middle. And I love that idea because every time I see these granny square bags made with 3 granny squares, I'm like, yeah, well, you only have this much bag to put your stuff in because all of this is open. But she kind of solved that by putting a little triangle spot or a little triangle in this spot here, and then you have your strap, and it's a really ingenious little bag. So I'm almost done with it. I kind of reinvented it for myself. I think when I do the triangle, I'm just going to do that solid of the blue color. I think hers is a 2-color triangle. I'm adjusting it. It's just going to be slightly different, but it was very heavily inspired by hers. So I'll put a link for her tutorial video on that and her blog post of the Carter bag. But this mine's like Carter bag's cousin that's almost done, like not almost done. I always say almost done, and I still have to do 2 more colors on this, 1 more, finish that 3rd color on this, make the little triangles and make the strap. So not quite done, but very fun to make. Next, I have a new acquisition. So I don't know why I got this. I can't remember. I saw it online. Maybe it was an ad or something. I got inspired to try this yarn for some reason or another. It is the Yarnsmith's Pebble Haze DK. So this is a very, very close dupe, or not dupe, but very close in the look and effect of the Sheep G's Stonewash. So I really love that yarn visually, but I don't like it texturally. So the Sheep G's Stonewash yarn is like this. It has a light core of, I believe, cotton, and then it has an acrylic halo of a contrast color. And it's the same with this one. This one just happens to be like a color changing one, but it still has the white core with the color being just as a fuzzy halo around the yarn. So the stonewash is a little bit more pronounced in that. You can see it's not that much different. They're pretty similar visually, but I really don't like the texture of the sheep cheese stonewash very much. It's kind of like sharp, almost rough feeling, and I don't like working with it because I'm big on texture being nice when I'm working with a yarn. I don't like to feel, I don't know, just roughness on my fingers. It's not enjoyable, but this, I took a chance and I purchased this online, and when it came in, I was very pleasantly surprised. It's very soft. So I'm a fan. It also, yeah, and I don't think the stone washed, they have river washed, which comes like with a solid color core with a different color halo, so you can get, I don't know, kind of a marled effect. And then, but this has some color, I think they call it prints. So it's just different colors that blend together, but it looks really cool when you knit it up or when you crochet it up. I'm gonna get so confused now that I'm a knitter and a crocheter. Sorry. So I tested that out with my diamond pattern that I also just released a tutorial of the diamond and the triangle recently. So this is a slight variation on that. It's a more rounds. I did some working into the back loop here to kind of give it a little bit of texture. I did a round that was, I think, a half double crochet and then working into the third loop to get this little chain that popped out, kind of an extra textural effect with the white there. Anyway, I wanted to play with that yarn, and then I really liked the idea of having my triangle and diamonds sort of more noticeable because of a border. So I have a little contrast of like white and then a different color that kind of picks up a color that's in the multicolor yarn but has a solid for my border. I felt like that's a really nice effect. I'm using the same join as you go technique that I did in the baby blanket, except that it's done with a, is it done with a single crochet or double crochet? So instead of a single crochet on that one. But I really liked how the colors, it looks like hand-dyed yarn with multicolor. It looks like watercolor kind of. I really am into this, how this looks. It's very nice. Sorry, the light's kind of bad. It's the sun setting right now. Maybe that's a little better angle, but I really liked how that was coming out. So I'm gonna go ahead and make, I think, I'm gonna make a cat blanket, maybe a throw. I get bored of projects too quickly to make anything very large, but I'll release this pattern as well, since it is quite different in construction. It's the similar in idea to my diamonds and triangle solid granny squares, but it's different enough that I think it deserves its own pattern. So I'll put that up on Ravelry at some point. I don't think I'll do a video tutorial on it though. I think it's close enough to the other video, but you could reference that video to understand the construction, because I do a little special technique at the corners of the diamond to make them more pointy. And I don't think it's anything I've ever seen anyone else do, but it's rather effective. So you can check out that video, I'll link it as well. So yeah, I think I'll make a little kitty cat blanket. I tend to make little blankets for my cats for the top of the couch cushion so that they can sit on those and they feel cozy and the couch gets less furry. And this is washable and everything. It's cotton acrylic, so it should do fine. Yeah, it's actually cool wash and cool tumble dry, so that's a benefit as well. So I like this yarn quite a bit, and it's a good replacement or sub for the sheep cheese stone wash if you also have a little issue with the texture on that one. This one's much softer. Next, we should probably talk about my first knitting project ever and how it's going. So this is that. It has made a little progress. I think it's double or triple the length that it was last time you saw it. So I did take out, I think I showed how I was gonna do something to fix the bottom here. I realized I could also take out that edge stitch and do a different bind off technique because it is a crochet. It's not a crochet cast on, it's a Tunisian crochet cast on, which is really similar to a provisional cast on. So I could do the thing that I showed in my last video where I do a slip stitch all along the edge to reinforce it and make it lay flat. I could just block it and see how it goes. Or I could take out this cast on and then cast off with a stretchier cast off. So it's nice that there's sort of different ways you can save your knitting, whereas in crochet, pretty much whatever you do is what it is unless you completely rip it out. And you can't really rip out from the bottom of a project as easily as you can from the top. But with knitting, I think it's a little easier. So yeah, I'm still learning. But anyway, as far as the rest of the scarf, I have a few more rows of the horizontal chain. I did one here too. My tension's a little funny. You can tell it was looser at the bottom, then it goes in at the sides, then it's looser again at the top. But I'm working on it. It's my I probably shouldn't have done a straight-sided item for my very first project. I'm kind of learning that now. But, you know, live and learn. And I did finally figure out what to do for, I don't know if you watched my last episode, but there's this whole saga of what do I do for the middle where I'm going to Kitchener stitch two sides together and how do I make that lay flat? Short rows. The answer is short rows. So I spent way more time than I needed to trying to figure out different things that I could do. So I finally figured out that I could just do short rows in here, continue doing the decreases, and then work like one or two short rows, and then I would have a straight edge. And I proved that to myself by binding off this little sample. At the top, it's perfectly straight across. My zigzags here look fine. I'm sure once I joined this to the other side, it would be fine and it would look really great. So that took a lot of mental energy to figure out. It's a little embarrassing that it took that much. But I also stopped doing the increases here. So we have the yarn over increases in the peak of the chevron. So when I start to do this section to join it, I'm going to skip those. I'm going to keep doing these decreases, but skip those. I could also skip the decreases and just do short rows, and then it would just be plain stockinette, which might even be better because when you do join, I did a little sample. When you do join with a Kitchener stitch, you lose that detail of the decrease, kind of just disappears for a little bit. So that might ultimately be what I do. I'm still kind of working it out, but now I know that short rows are the answer and I don't need to stress out about what the middle of my scarf is going to look like anymore. It'll be fine. I'll figure it out. I also have a new acquisition of a proper notebook so that I don't have to write my notes on little scraps of paper. I ran out of room in my crochet notebook where I keep all my notes, and I wanted a sort of separate book for my knitting notes anyway. So I guess I'll have to order another one for crochet as well. But this is just from Amazon and it's great. It's really high quality, A5 size. It has, you probably can't see it on, but anyway, it has the dot grid, so that's perfect for me. You can write notes really easily, but you can also draw out patterns really easily and make sketches without, I don't like lined. It does have lined at the front though, so you can kind of give yourself a little table of contents. And then you can have your projects in here all noted out and you can draw your stitching. Actually, I have to learn how to do knit charts. I know how to do crochet charts, but I don't know how to do knit charts yet. the symbols and things. Like so far, I just kind of sketch it out and then write what I'm doing. Like I know how to do the written pattern, but if anyone has a good video tutorial recommendation for how to write or read knitting charts, that would be good, because I'm kind of a chart person. Actually, I did do a crochet thing in here, I realized. So I guess this is my new crochet and knitting notebook. So you can see I like to note how to make crochet patterns. I initially do them just as a stitch chart, and then I go ahead and write it down. Maybe for knitting that doesn't make sense because you're not switching stitches all that often. You're more like, this is how I cast on, this is how many stitches I knit in this particular stitch, and maybe it is more about having it written out. And I'm learning how to read and write all the abbreviations for the stitches. So maybe it's not necessary to learn charting, but I like to learn as much as I can about each hobby that I do. And I also, it's kind of funny, when I started knitting, I decided that I would just follow other people's patterns and not get carried away with trying to create my own. And then I realized I'm a designer at heart. I can't do that. So I tried to do this. So I tried to do this one was someone else's pattern. Then I completely changed it and I made it completely different. And then I have another one to show you in a second. But basically this was a really basic pattern, and then I had to go ahead and make it different. So that's just not in my nature. So I'm gonna be designing my own patterns, whether those are for sale or just for myself. So anyway, I got this new, I'll link it in the description. It's just a little notebook from Amazon, really good paper quality. I love a dot grid, perfect size for me. It has little, like the ribbon, placeholders, and it has the little elastic to keep it closed, and it has the little elastic for your pen, although I use pencil. But anyway, perfect little notebook. I love it. What else have we got to show? So before I lose the light, I should show you my last two whips, and they are knitting whips. So I again started a straight-sided scarf, realizing now that maybe I should do like a pie shawl or a triangular shawl or a little triangular scarf or something that doesn't have straight edges that show that I'm still learning tension, but whatever, I can block it. So this is the father-in-law scarf pattern. And then again, I had to go ahead and modify it because the father-in-law scarf pattern starts just with straight. It's just pretty much stripes like this. But then I got a little bored, as I do. And then I wanted to start creating a little pattern. And I created this little lattice pattern here. So that was really fun to figure out how to do. Basically, it's done the same as you would cables in a way, because you're switching the position of the stitches so that it can go diagonally. And I think I went 5 stitches straight, then crossed them, then 5 stitches straight, then crossed them the other direction. So it makes this cool lattice pattern. So that's really fun. And this is using one of my new favorite yarns called Comfy, not to be confused with Cozy, which I used in the other one. This is Comfy by Knit Picks We Crochet. And it's a cotton acrylic, but instead of the traditional, I feel like all of the cotton acrylics I run across are 50-50 cotton acrylic. This is 75% cotton, 25% acrylic. So it still has like that extra, those good qualities that a little bit of acrylic gives you when you blend it with cotton, but it feels even more, I don't know, not quite cottony, but just natural and not synthetic. So I like that. I don't use wool, so this would be probably my most close that I felt so far to wool in like feel and also behavior. So that's a really good find as far as yarns go, to find one that really feels like a wool yarn, even though it's just cotton acrylic. So that's the Comfy, and that's the color Parchment, and that's the very heavily modified father-in-law scarf pattern. So anyway, I almost ripped this all out because then I realized I wanted this section of this part where before it starts latticing to be much longer and then go into the lattice. And then I was like, this is just you practicing doing knitting, relax. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can just make the scarf, just finish it. Don't get like, I was already really far. So then I just kept going. I also played a little bit of yarn chicken. So you can see I have a little lifeline in these stitches right now because this is how much one ball of yarn gave me, and then I had to go ahead and order more so that I can make the rest of my scarf. So that's on hold right now until I have more yarn. And finally, we have a new acquisition / new whip / new design. Anyway, so here's the Knitting for Olive. This is the pure silk. And I believe it's a vegan friendly. Well, I don't know if it would be called vegan friendly, but it's sort of animal friendly. It's a silk where they let the silkworm have its entire life cycle and turn into a moth and then exit the cocoon before they use it to make the silk, which isn't done with other silk making practices. And I don't know if it's like in the past or just with other qualities of silk. It they stop it in the process of while it's still in the cocoon. They unwind the cocoon and bye-bye to the little worm inside. But I believe what it said on the website is these are allowed to live their full life cycle, and then they get the silk out of the used cocoons, which of course makes the silk strands shorter because they make a little hole in their cocoon when they get out, so you're not going to have one continuous thread, but it's completely fine for me. It's been working really well. It's a really beautiful yarn. I have it in the copper color and the plum rose color, and I'm using it held double because it is a fingering weight, and together it feels kind of like a sport weight, maybe a DK. Feels like sport to me when held double. I'm really enjoying that. I've never done, so this is a cowl that I'm doing, and it's really fun. I'm learning a lot with this project. So I'm learning how to do the magic loop. I learned how to do a provisional cast on because I couldn't find a cast on that was stretchy enough for I'm doing a fisherman's rib. I'm learning a new stitch, that's fisherman's rib. So I just did a provisional cast on with a crochet so that I could later do a really super stretchy cast or bind off. I don't know what one yet. I might do the Icelandic bind off perhaps is what I'm thinking about, but also this is a rib, so I might want to do a rib specific one, maybe like the Italian bind off, but that looks very complicated. It has like 4 different steps and you have to do it by hand. It's not knit. So I don't know. Let me know your recommendations for a fisherman's rib, a good cast off, because I'm going to have to rip out the provisional cast on and do a bind off with that. And then the other end, this will be a cowl. So it'll be yay high. And I'll have to bind off at that end. It'll also be fisherman rib at that end. But it isn't going to be fisherman's rib for the entire cowl, I don't think. So what I was planning on doing, also the other thing I learned was how to hold 2 double, and I'm getting a really cool marl effect. So I'm learning a new stitch, a new cast on technique. I'm using fingering weight held double for the first time in my life. So this is really cool. I'm like learning a lot. It's really fun. I also I'm also sort of attempting to design an interesting transition from fisherman's rib to seed stitch. So it'll be kind of a zigzag pattern along each edge. And then in the center, there will be a section where it's all seed stitch. but in between it'll kind of like make a zigzag of fisherman's rib with seed stitch. And I did do a little swatch, and I'll show that here on camera now. This isn't the exact pattern that it'll be. It's gonna look like this. I was just kind of seeing if I could do a blend of the seed stitch and the fisherman's rib because it felt like it might work out because it's, you know, knit, purl, seed stitches, knit, purl, knit, purl. It gets a little confusing on the back side. I was doing it flat, but it worked out. It worked out fine. It's just you have to kind of pay attention for just these two sections where right in here where you have, it's going to start with all fisherman's rib, then it's going to go to 3 fisherman rib, 1 seed stitch, then 3 seed stitch, 1 fisherman rib row, then all seed stitch. So it'll only be complicated in those 2 little sections where it's switching between them. Anyway, oh, also I'm learning to knit in the round. So I hadn't done that yet. I've only knit flat before, so now I'm knitting in the round. So that's really interesting. I have my like really bad stitch marker of just a little piece of yarn, but it works, you know. If you don't have any fancy stitch markers, you can just do a loop and that works just fine. I'm also kind of crazy and I left a little hunky chunk of yarn at the end that I can work my cast off or my bind off with, but it's kind of getting in the way, so I might abandon that idea. What was I saying before that? Anyway, I'm just learning. It's really fun. I'm really liking how this is knitting up. It's really, really soft and kind of squishy. I know that's a normal thing for the fisherman's rib to be like that, but also holding yarns double, they tend to kind of feel more squishy to me. I've done that with some yarn before and I didn't like it because I was crocheting with it and I was holding it double and it felt too squishy and too thick and yucky, but I like it here in this usage with knitting and with a thinner yarn. So yeah, I think it's partly the 100% silk fiber, it's partly, it's a low twist but held double, it's the fisherman's rib, it's a very squishy stitch, so I don't know, I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's kind of like a easier way to knit brioche, so I like that too because I did look up how to do brioche and I've been wanting to do brioche, but it looked a little complicated with the yarn overs and having, especially if you're doing 2 color and you're having to do 2 passes. So I'm starting with fisherman rib in a single color and I don't plan to do any color work on this scarf, so it'll just be about texture. Cowl, not scarf, sorry. So I'm doing, I think 24-inch cowl. So it'll be like yay wide, I don't know. It'll be fun. Also, this is like my very favoriteest color in the world, so you can tell because it's almost the same color as my other scarf. So that's just, you're gonna see a lot of this rust color, terracotta rust, russet on my channel. I had someone once nickname me Cinnamon Girl because I really like the colors, like this cinnamon brown color. So yeah, that'll be around. That's my color. Okay, well, I think that's enough for today. That's everything I had to share today and show. So I hope you enjoyed this little kind of peek into my creative world. And I want to see what you are up to too. So don't forget to tag me on Instagram at Pattern and Craft or leave me a little comment below and let me know what you got up to in the last month or so of your own creative journey. And whether you like seeing, let me know, like whether you like seeing both knitting and crochet content together. Like I said, I also do all sorts of other crafts. Oh, I wanted to show this too. I have a tutorial for this bracelet on my channel if you're interested. So that's the diamond macrame, something like that. I'll link it. Bracelet, and I wanted to I started wearing it again recently and I really like it. And I think I didn't wear it when I first made it because I was just using it for Instagram photos and I didn't want to mess it up, but it's been a while, so I'm like, I never wear this and it's so beautiful. So I've been wearing it a lot and it's actually holding up quite well. Anyway, have a good rest of your day. I hope you got some progress done while listening to this video, maybe on a project, or just entertained you while you're working or doing chores or something like that. I'll see you next time and happy crafting.